The lessons this summer have taken us on a journey, especially the Old Testament lesson, which has seen us through the rise of David as a young boy, beating Goliath, becoming king, being a flawed man, being an older, wiser man, and handing the kingdom over to his son Solomon, who himself began as a young man, overwhelmed by his new responsibility. And in a dream, God asks him, "What do you want?" It's as though God was expecting him to say, "Well, I want a lot of money. I want a lot of power, I want fame, more followers on Instagram, I don't know. What do you want?" And he said, "I want wisdom." And God was so impressed by this that he gave him not only wisdom, but all the other things as well. This lesson takes Solomon as a young king who achieved something that his father David wanted to do, but didn't. And that is to build a temple to God, a place where they could finally house the Ark of the Covenant. Now, any of you who watched Raiders of the Lost Ark know what the Ark of the Covenant looks like. Because what they made in Hollywood is a close approximation to what is described in the Old Testament. It's the size of a steamer trunk, basically, and it was carried around by two poles. Well, finally, the Ark of the Covenant came to rest in the temple built by Solomon. A temple so vast is described in football fields to give people a sense of how big and massive this thing was. It was the pride and joy of Solomon. It was the pride and joy of the people of Jerusalem, but of the Hebrew and Jewish faith. It was the center of their worship, the center of their identity. It was everything. Imagine that. How several hundred years later of imbuing all of their love and worship and praise into this place, invaded by the Babylonians. The Babylonians, recognizing the importance of this temple, tore it down. Imagine something that's massive and huge. Not only to build it took decades, but to tear it down was no easy feat either. And it was torn down. And the leading citizens of Israel and Jerusalem were taken out of the city and brought hundreds of miles away in what's known as the Babylonian exile. Defeated, dispirited, broken, going to a whole far-flung place, not knowing what to do, feeling lost. 60 years later, a new king and a new empire arises. Allows the people of Israel actually to return to Jerusalem and the rubble that was left behind. And out of that rubble, they built a brand new temple. A new focal point, new hope, new inspiration. And it stayed there for centuries. Again, healing the people, creating a place for their worship, creating a place for their identity to form. The place where Jesus himself walked and preached. And then in the year 60 AD, after an insurrection or an attempted insurrection by the Israelites, the Roman Empire ruthlessly not only came and destroyed the insurrection, but again tore down that temple again as a way of defeating not only the physical, but the spiritual and emotional heart of the people. All that remains, and to this very day, all that remains is a small section of wall. We now know it as the Wailing Wall. It is a small section. Architects tell us that it is a part of a retaining wall in a far-flung section of the temple. A very humble place. It's like saving a section of a basement wall and then giving that section reverence. And yet, history tells us that since 950 AD, People have been gathering at the Wailing Wall to pray. So deep and fervent is their devotion to this place. But not only the place, the idea. We are rooted to location. If you don't believe me, when we go upstairs, next week actually, when we go upstairs, I will take attendance. Even if I don't remember your name, I'll know where you sit. Episcopalians have to have their seat. Good God help me if I change things around. You can change anything else, but don't you dare touch my chair, my pew. You think I'm joking? I did it in 2 different churches. Boy, that another story for another sermon. Suffice it to say, we are spatially oriented. The temple, the Wailing Wall, is incredibly important in the identity of all people of faith, particularly the Jewish people, but of all people of faith. We can all identify with that. So why am I going on and on and on about this temple? One, I like history. But the more important part is that not only is it an actual, physical, tangible connection to the times our scriptures talk about. It is a metaphor for our own faith. It's a metaphor for our own journeys. When we're young and untested by life and experiences, our zeal and our faith can be strong. Building the temple, housing God in our hearts, is fairly easy to do. And then over the years, being battered and assaulted by the events of our lives, the temple can be destroyed. The death of a loved one, confusion, the loss of a job, a career, the destruction of a dream destroys the temple of faith that we once had. And feeling like we're in the wilderness of exile, not knowing what to do. And then over time, finding some source of healing and being able to go back and try again to rebuild. To try again. To rebuild that temple, perhaps not the same as it was, but still grand and wonderful. And yet, again, events in life going longer, to be destroyed yet again. And all that remains is a shard, a shred. And out of that shard and shred, new life is held on to. I identify with this process. Being young and starting off new and getting all excited, priest and ministry, yahoo. I was 25, couldn't stop me. Ready to roll. And everything's good. But then life happens. Things happen. Things that, people sometimes think, oh, well, you're a priest, you must have it all put together. Oh, trust me. That's not happening. Because things happen too. People die. Life changes. Things hurt. There's betrayal, there's pain, there's destruction, there's questioning. Why? And that temple gets broken down. And then a new start. Okay, let's try again. Let's start again. Things happen. I've told a little bit about this over time. I don't talk a whole lot about it. But reaching a point of having to get into my own sobriety. The last days, months, years of my own alcoholic life. The nightmare that was. The place that it brought me, the depths that it brought me, the sense of loathing, self-loathing. The fear of hypocrisy, of being a fake and a phony, standing up in front of people, knowing that this other side was there. And finally, all come crashing down. The temple destroyed. My brain, my spirit, in agony. What remained? What I used as a foothold was morning prayer. Every day, I started my day with the morning prayer. Even if I wasn't following the words bouncing off my brain, it was that discipline. every day that I held on to. That was my shard, that was my wailing wall that allowed me to hold on and to rebuild. And so I did. And so I did. I'm sure you all have your own stories. We're of a certain age. We've been around the block. Some of us have been around the block so many times as a trench worn in. We know what we're talking about. We know what death is, and frankly, we know what resurrection is. We know what rebuilding is, and it's important to keep that in mind. St. Paul, in his letter to the Ephesians, talks about put on the armor of God. Put on the breastplate of faith. Shields of truth. I mean, this man knows how to milk a metaphor. He just, all of this armor and stuff to prepare for the day. You think he's making it up? If you've ever been in a city, you stand on a subway platform at 7 a.m. or a train platform at 7 a.m. watching people get ready to go to work. You see them mentally bracing themselves. Maybe you do it yourself with a cup of coffee when you're watching the news. You brace yourself, you get ready for the day, you think about what's coming ahead, you prepare. That's putting on the armor. It's putting on the breastplate and the shield and going forth. When Jesus talks to his disciples about the flesh and the blood, last week, I got to tell you, last week's sermon really struck a chord. I got phone calls, I got emails. 40 years I've been doing this. Never did I get the response like I got last week. I go, good Lord. That struck a chord deep about the Eucharist and about what it means to people, how deep it goes. I really had no idea. I do now, and I won't underestimate it. But that depth of intimacy with God, the depth of the invitation, the depth of the love and grace that draws us in, to take of it and make of it what we will, because it is our wailing wall. It is our shard to hold on to, our foothold when times are rough. Sometimes just sitting in a familiar pew is enough to hold on, and we need that. And Jesus talks about that. The clarity of it, the reality of it, the depth of it, flesh and blood, to consume, to become that. It's that intimate, it's that real. And some people can't take it. They leave, they don't want anything to do with it. It's too much. It's too much, and they go, like the disciples. Some left, but some stayed. Now, I dare say that some of those who left hopefully came back later, because the door is always open to come back. And like Paul said with the getting ready for that day, having that armor is only one piece of the story. That's only half the story. The other half is to proclaim the goodness that's happened to you. The reason I talk about my own sobriety is not because I want to hold it out there. What was, frankly, a source of shame and embarrassment has now become something that I hold as very special, because it enables me to help other people, families of alcoholics and alcoholics themselves who are trying to figure it out. Well, I've got some guideposts, because I've been there. Proclaiming the grace of God that we have received is incredibly important for those who have not yet become aware of it. I'm going to tell a story. And I actually got permission to the story because the person I'm talking about is actually watching, so I had to call in between services to make sure I was okay. A friend of mine, dear friend, just finished chemo and radiation. In the hospital, on the way out, those who complete the rounds ring a bell. let everyone know. So I'm seeing some heads nodding. When it's complete. So I asked him, are you going to ring the bell? He goes, no, I don't want to do that. So, but you got to. No, I don't want to do it. So, well, it's not for you. It's for the people in the waiting room who are just starting, who need to know that someone can get through this. It's excruciating. It's excruciating to watch. I can't even imagine how excruciating it is to go through. But to ring the bell is a sign of victory. It's a sign of completion. But to the people sitting in the waiting room, it's a sign of hope. Not only to the people who are receiving the treatment, but to the people who love them. Proclamation. That's what proclamation is. Not only receiving it, but sharing the good news. You can do it. You can do it too. If I can do it, you can do it. Hold on. The temples that we build, the temples that get destroyed, always have a remnant. And it's that remnant that we hold on to. That wailing wall. Use that as an image if you like. Where is your wailing wall? Is it a pew upstairs? Is it your favorite chair in your living room? Is it a walk along one of the rail trails? We all have one. Identify it, but talk about it, and ask people where theirs is too. When Jesus tells his disciples about what's coming, some of them can't handle it, but some of them can. And we're all at those places and everywhere in between. But the good news is, Jesus is there, has been there, will lead us wherever we're going and follow us through. Last week I ended by saying, it's a mystery. And I don't always know the answer. Sometimes it's hard enough to find the question. But I'm always looking. I'm always getting closer. So come on, let's do it. Amen.